Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, this one might hit some folks the wrong way. And, I really am a little bit uncomfortable with it because if you've watched me for any amount of time or you know me personally, you know that I hate drama, I hate negativity. And so that is not the goal. But this is a little bit of the reality because what we're going to talk about today has nothing to do with calling setups, gear, or even advanced tactics. And it has everything to do with the patterns that quietly keep hunters stuck for years without them ever realizing it. If you're not familiar with who I am, I've been hunting and guiding Western big game for over 34 years, and I've been a professional strength conditioning and nutrition coach for more than 30 years, and I'm here to help you become a more successful and consistent elk hunter and outdoorsman. This is not an attack. This is just a self-check, right? With a cute title. And it applies whether you're brand new to elk hunting or you've been doing this for a long time and still haven't just put the pieces together the way that you expected. Because the truth is, a lot of elk hunters don't fail because they can't figure it out. They fail because they never recognize the behaviors that are holding them back. And those behaviors show up in small ways. Might be in how you make decisions out there. It might be how you respond to those situations, and it might be how you handle the moments that actually matter. So as you listen to this, I want you to be honest with yourself, because if you recognize even one of these patterns, you can fix it. And when you do, everything is going to start to change for you. Sign number one, you need proof before you believe in a spot. This is one of the most common patterns that keeps elk hunters stuck, and most don't even realize they're doing it. You move into an area, you look around, and if you don't immediately see elk, hear bugles, or find other really obvious fresh sign, your confidence drops. You might even leave. You go find something else that feels more certain, something that gives you proof. And on the surface, that can make sense, right? You're not wasting time. You want confirmation that you're in the right place. But the problem is, elk hunting doesn't always work that way. If you only stay in areas where you already have proof, you're going to constantly be behind elk movement instead of ahead of it, because a lot of encounters don't happen instantly, right? They happen after you commit, after you learn, after you trust the terrain, the wind, the timing. You've got to learn those things. After you give an area enough time for elk to move through it, shift into it, or return to it based on pressure and conditions. Elk are not always visible, right? They're not always vocal, and they're not always easy to confirm. And that doesn't mean they're not there or that they won't be there shortly. So when you leave too early, you're not making a smart move all the time. You could be cutting off your opportunity before it ever develops. The deeper truth here is that successful elk hunters learn to trust what should happen next if they've done their e-scouting and scouting properly, and that they understand elk behavior, not just what they can see right now. They commit when the setup is right, even without proof, because they understand something a lot of elk hunters don't. If you need proof first, you're always going to be a little bit late. Sign number two, you get bored when nothing is happening. This one is subtle, but it quietly ruins a lot of elk hunts. If you're the kind of elk hunter who always needs something to be happening, you're going to struggle with elk, because elk hunting is not constant action. I wish it were. That would be so much fun, right? It's long stretches of nothing, though. That's the reality, followed by very short windows where everything happens fast. And most elk hunters can't handle that nothing phase, so they move a lot. They leave spots too early. They jump from drainage to drainage. They keep hiking, keep searching, keep trying to create something instead of just letting it develop, because standing still doesn't feel productive to them. But here's the reality. Constant movement is often the problem, not the solution. Every time you leave a good area too early, you're going to reset the entire situation. You might walk away from potential movement you never gave time to happen, or you might trade your position for activity, right? Activity meaning you're moving around. And over time, that adds up. The hunters who struggle with boredom are almost always the ones who say, I just can't seem to be in the right place at the right time. But the truth is, they might have been in the right place. They just didn't stay long enough, because elk don't operate on your timeline. They move when it makes sense for them based on pressure, wind, temperature, security, things of that nature. And if you're not there when that movement happens, you're obviously going to miss it. Not because you didn't work hard enough, but because you didn't stay patient enough. And this is where discipline matters. You have to learn how to sit in the quiet, trust the setup, and wait for the window to open. Because if you can't do that, you're going to keep chasing movement instead of being there when it happens. And the truth here is pretty simple. If you can't sit in the quiet, you're never going to be there when it matters. Hey, if you hunt public land elk and you're tired of grinding through random seasons, I built the elk hunting series of ebooks for you. Most hunters don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they lack a system. And that's exactly why I built the elk hunting ebook series as a complete progressive framework for Western elk hunters who are done guessing and ready to hunt with intention. Volume 1 is going to be Foundations and Reality. I reset your mindset and expose the assumptions that quietly wreck seasons. In Volume 2, Finding Elk and Understanding Pressure, you'll learn how elk actually move under pressure so you can anticipate instead of react. In Volume 3, Terrain, Wind, and Position, I break down how to use landscape and thermals to consistently create opportunities. In Volume 4, Calling, Silence, and Pressure, sound becomes a decision tool, not an impulse. In Volume 5, Bow Hunting Execution, we're talking about close range strategy so you can finish your encounters. And in Volume 6, Late Season and Post-Rut, we're talking about how elk shift after the rut and how to adapt when others quit. This is a system built for consistency. This isn't theory. It's a structured system to help you find elk, read country, and make confident decisions every season. Buy each volume individually or bundle them all to save 50% off at backboneunlimited.com. Sign number 3, you hunt for validation, not results. This one is harder to see, and let me explain what I mean. It feels like you're doing everything right a lot of times. You're putting in the miles, you're pushing hard, you're grinding through tough terrain, long days, and uncomfortable conditions. And part of you takes a lot of pride in that, and you should. This is a demanding hunt, but there's a difference between working hard and working smart and effectively, right? A lot of hunters start chasing validation without realizing it. They measure the hunt by how far they hiked, how tough it was, how much they endured, how much they get to brag about all of those things on social media. They prioritize the over the outcome. And I love the grind, but they avoid the decisions that don't feel like hunting, like backing out because the wind, or slowing down instead of pushing, or staying put instead of covering ground, because those decisions, they don't feel as productive. Harder to brag about just hanging out and sitting, right? They don't look as impressive, but they're often the ones that lead to success, choosing to hunt a transition maybe in the early season because the elk aren't bugling much, right? The mountain doesn't care how hard you worked or how far you traveled. Elk don't reward effort. They respond to pressure, positioning, timing, and wind, and you have to understand that. And if your decisions are driven by how you want the hunt to feel, tough, intense, nonstop, you're going to override what the situation actually requires. And that's where ego starts costing you opportunities, because sometimes the right move might be to back out. It might be to slow down. It might be to sit and hang out, to not do what feels hard in the moment. And that's not weakness, that's control in elk hunting. Until you detach from needing to feel like you're hunting hard, you're going to keep making decisions that look good, but don't necessarily produce results. Because the truth here is that if you need to feel tough, you're going to make decisions that cost you elk. Sign number 4, you don't adapt fast enough. This one is probably the most expensive mistake in elk hunting, and it doesn't feel like a mistake when you're doing it because it usually looks like commitment. You pick an area, you put time into it, you convince yourself they've got to be here. And instead of adjusting when things don't line up, you double down. You stay in dead areas too long. You wait for elk to show up. You ignore what the mountain is actually telling you in real time. And that's where time starts slipping away, because elk hunting is not static. It's constantly constantly changing. Pressure shifts elk, weather moves elk, feed changes shift elk, and those sometimes don't all happen overnight, and sometimes they do happen overnight. But most hunters don't adjust at the same speed. They hold on to a plan that made sense yesterday, even when it's no longer working today. And by the time they finally decide to move or to change or to try something different, the opportunity is already passed. That's the gap. Successful elk hunters don't just work hard, they adjust fast. They recognize when something isn't lining up. They trust what they're seeing, not just what they hoped would happen. And they're willing to make uncomfortable decisions early instead of wasting days waiting for things to improve, because every hour matters and every decision either keeps you in elk or takes you out of them. So the goal isn't just to have a plan, it's being willing to change that plan the moment it stops working. Because the truth here is if you wait too long to change, the opportunity can already be gone, right? Sign number 5, you haven't learned how to handle the moment. This is the one nobody wants to admit, but it's where a lot of hunts actually fall apart. You may have done the work. You may have found elk. You may have gotten into position. Everything could start feeling like it's coming together. And then all of a sudden, the moment of truth shows up, a bull steps out. You hear movement closing the distance. You realize this is the opportunity you've been waiting for, and everything speeds up. Your heart rate jumps. Your thoughts get scattered. You rush or you hesitate when you should act. You second guess your setup, your angle, your next move. And just like that, it's over. Not because you weren't capable, but because you weren't ready for the moment. That's the part a lot of elk hunters overlook. They spend all their time preparing to find elk, but almost no time preparing to handle the stress of what happens when they do. Because success in elk hunting doesn't come from the days you put in, it comes down to those seconds where you have to stay calm, trust your positioning, trust your read on the wind, trust the distance, and execute without hesitation or panic. And if you haven't developed that control, that clarity under pressure and stress, those seconds can slip away fast. And that's where guys can hunt hard for years, get a few real opportunities, and still come up empty. Because the moment isn't just physical, it's mental. And until you can slow things down when everything feels fast, you're going to keep missing those chances. If you can't handle the moment, you're going to waste the opportunity. If you look at everything we just covered, these aren't small mistakes, really. These are identity level issues. They show up in how you think, how you make decisions, how you handle pressure, and how you move through the hunt when nothing is happening and when everything is happening at once. And the reality is, a lot of elk hunters are going to recognize themselves in at least one or two of these, right? Probably more. I can see myself in all of them at some stage, and that's not a bad thing. But it does require honesty, because you don't fix this by learning a new tactic or buying better gear. You fix it by being willing to look at how you're actually operating in the field and making changes that might feel uncomfortable at first. But that's where your growth is going to happen. That's where your progress is going to start. Because once you correct these patterns right here that we talked about today, everything else is going to begin to fall into place. Your decisions will improve. Your positioning on elk is going to improve. Your timing will get better. And suddenly the opportunities you used to miss are going to start turning into results. That's the shift. Not surface level adjustments, but real change in how you approach elk hunting and your preparation for it. Fix that, and everything changes. Now, if you want to go deeper into elk movement, pressure patterns, terrain positioning, and structured decision making, that's exactly why I built the elk hunting series of ebooks. It's a progressive system designed to help you understand how elk actually use country and how to position yourself accordingly. I have a link to those ebooks in the description. If you want hands-on application and real-time breakdowns, we have an in-person Elk Camp 2026 that is built around this same philosophy: structure, preparation, and execution in real time. 90% of Elk Camp is going to be running you through scenarios. You can check that out at backboneunlimited.com. And if you want ongoing access to the Team Backbone community, classroom, my full digital vault of elk resources, private discussions, and direct communication to me for planning, you can join Team Backbone at backboneunlimited.com underneath our membership tab. Everything we talk about here is connected. Preparation is not a single video, it's a system. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.